Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Infield Report. My name is Isaac alongside my older brother, Tyler.
How's it going?
This weekend was a fantastic weekend of racing. I would argue possibly the best weekend of racing across all three series that we've seen so far in the 2026 season. It was a lot of unknowns this week out in San Diego, and there were question marks from the beginning of the weekend about tire wear, about you know, is the track gonna hold up? How are those crane tracks gonna hold up? What what sort of track are we going to see versus what the teams had seen in their sim sessions, this, that, and the other. There was a lot of unknowns, like I said, and that I think made it very entertaining on my end. For you, I know you were able to watch it a little bit more in real time this weekend than I was, but how do you feel like it went versus your expectations?
My expectations, to be honest, were it was going to be boring. That it was just going to, with the track length and everything, it's just going to be kind of boring. I'm so glad I was wrong. I wouldn't
Yeah.
say it was the absolute best weekend, but it's up there. All three combined, yes, it's the best weekend we've had so far in 2026. What I saw on TV, to be honest, there was action everywhere. It wasn't like the racing got a little stale here and there, but it was natural, like, oh, they're kind of in a long run, they're conserving tires, fuel, whatnot, or they just got out of a caution that had a big one, and everyone's just kind of playing nice for now. But other than that, there was action, there was passing, there was swapping back and forth, and even the strategies played a good factor into it as well. So I was very happy with this weekend.
Yeah, the 3.4 miles, I was a little skeptical with as well, just because, again, that's a long, long circuit, and, nobody really knew what the lap times were going to be. I listened to I think it was Hocevar a little bit, and he had made a comment about, the him and SVG were running iRacing quite a bit this week, and the in the weeks leading up to this event, but they took a lot of different cars around the track, and SVG actually, I if I remember correctly, SVG recommended the Miatas to Hocevar, and they both kinda ran that for a while, and they said that was a lot closer in lap time than the actual cup car in their sim session than what they thought it was gonna be. So, I was a little nervous about lap times. I'll say that just because, again, 3.5 miles almost. You wonder, you're like, is that going to be 2 minutes? Is it going to be 3 minutes? What's it going to look like? It was about 2 minutes and 20 ish seconds a lap. So it was a little long, but with the way that the course was laid out, I think it went really well. Obviously, everybody has seen the viral clips of them coming down the hill and all four tires being off the ground. And there were a lot of them that said, "I'm glad I'm not driving this anymore because my back would be destroyed," which is fair because that's a tough hit, but, it was very entertaining to see. There were great, passing zones that were set up throughout the course as well, so it was really well designed. It was a joint effort between NASCAR and engineers in the Navy, and so that was a pretty cool joint effort to see, and, it played out very, very well. And the way, like I said, there were certain things that kinda reminded me of the Chicago street course a little bit, where there was a right-hander and it was sweeping left that kinda caught some guys off guard, and we'll talk about that here in a bit. But it was a lot of fun, regardless in all 3 series. The truck series, to start out with, was probably one of the most chaotic but fun races I've ever seen. Lane Riggs came out on top of that. He got the stage 1 win, led, 21 out of the 53 laps. It was, quite honestly, like I said, a lot of fun. Jimmy Johnson had made the comment in his after his first ever truck start, and he said there's not a lot of respect out there. There's a lot of carnage. But then in his pre-race uh, coverage from the Cup race, from before the Cup race, he did make a comment. It was a lot of fun to be able to just go out there and have a good time instead of being in the owner mindset when you're driving your own car. So he got to have a lot of fun with that. And I know he didn't have the finish that he wanted. He finished 30th with some electrical issues in the truck series, but it was good to see him getting out there and running again. And um, just like I said, having a good time. There were a lot of incidents in the truck series. A lot of guys deciding to put the bumper to each other, to be super aggressive, which at this point in the season you kind of have to be because you have to get every single point that you can, especially if you've got guys that are running that are ineligible for points. So you are still trying to make up for every single point that you can. And so it was a ton of fun. Uh, Parker Kligerman came in as well. He is running just a couple races. He's trying to find a couple more opportunities and stuff like that. And he got a stage 2 win. Didn't quite finish where he wanted to either. He had a little bit of a run in with Adam Andretti, and that interaction kind of went, uh, I'll say, viral in the NASCAR circles. And Parker was not too thrilled with Adam. I don't know if you had seen the clip, but there was a little bit of disrespect, I would say, thrown by Adam Andretti a little bit, and Parker was not having it. Parker's a guy that it takes a lot to get him angry, and to see him so frustrated and animated about something, you knew something was not right. And at one point, Parker just goes, he said something along the lines of, you know, "I don't care about your last name. You disrespected your last name." And that was a tough one to hear. But, the way that Adam was driving him a little bit, I don't know if it warranted that, but it was, you know, it was not a lot of fun to see from Parker's end. What did you think about their whole dust up and that whole situation?
They're off track, bad at each other. Yeah, it was quite heated. I haven't seen Parker Klickerman that angry before, at least in my memory. I've never heard of Adam Andretti before, to be honest. I don't know if he's playing with family money or if it's his own. I'm not going to dive too deep into that, but what I saw on track, I don't think Parker should have been that upset. But then again, I don't know if there was any other interaction that was beforehand that was the boiling point. It did look like more of a racing incident. I don't think it was on purpose what Andretti did, but they're both having a really good day until that happened. So I've been on both ends where I think I'm all that and I'm doing good and I have a tiny little run in and I'm the bad guy. And I've had a great run in or I've had a great race. Someone runs into me and the wind's all out of my sails and I'm hot under the collar. So I understand where both of them are coming from, but from what we saw on TV, just a racing incident.
Yeah. It's very tough to judge it from outside the driver's seat. And it's one of those things too where Parker Kligerman's in the smaller team truck with Henderson Motorsports running that number 75 truck. They're not obviously a big top tier team. Adam Andretti driving the 5 for Tricon. That's a pretty big ride, some pretty big money. So the fact that you had those two going at it throughout the day, and especially I think late, he was just kind of upset. Parker was upset because he had gotten turned around in the chicane there towards the end. That kind of ruined his day. But at a road course, I think things are going to get blown out of proportion. I think a little bit more than they would at an oval, just because it's such tight quarters. There was a lot of funneling from like 3, 4 wide on a massive wide straightaway into a corner that we saw, so that kinda created some things. Again, that chicane was a pretty tough one for a lot of guys to deal with, so kind of a mixed bag of results for guys. Uh, you know, again, some guys were not known for being road course racers, and they actually performed very, very well. Kaz Grala, again, not running a whole lot of races, but he finished third in that number 62 Hallmark Friesen truck. Again, they've had some great success this year. I don't know what they've found, but in that rotating 62 truck, and then also, I mean, Stuart Friesen himself had some power issues throughout the race, early in the race, but just overall, that team has found something this year in whatever they seem to run, whoever they run it with. So it's really, really good to see them continue to step their game up. Justin Haley, Butterbean, and Minnie Tyrell for those the Ram trucks, all of them finishing in the top 11. So that they turned out to have really, really great days. Landon Lewis in the 45 was having a good run as well all day. The one I want to point out that got so close, got 2 corners away, and unfortunately, had to serve the stop and go penalty, Tyler Reif in that Nice truck. That was heartbreaking. I know the rule is the stop and go penalty if you cut that corner, and it was just so tough to see that when the young kid had it in his hands, especially for Al Neese, who is a Navy veteran who trained at Coronado. That would have been a super awesome, I'll call it homecoming story for Nice Motorsports and trying to break a 51 race winless streak. Now it's up to 52, unfortunately, but um, that was that was super heartbreaking to watch. But Lane Riggs coming through at the very end to pull away with a win. My prediction on my website somehow was correct. I nailed that one. For me, I think it was just Lane Riggs has been on such a hot streak this year that, or he's not necessarily a hot streak, but he's been performing at a much higher level, and I think he's matured over the last year, year and a half, especially after he got his first win in Milwaukee. That he's he knows when to push now. He knows when to save, when to conserve his tire, that sort of thing. Granted, he just about ran out of fuel, so that strategy that they played worked out fantastically for him. But again, he did very well for himself and for front row. Chandler Smith had a really good shot to win it as well. I think Chandler might have actually had the faster truck there at the end, but unfortunately, with that late race restart, he got spun around and just made some heavy contact there on that front straightaway out of turn one, and that ruined his shot at the win. But I think arguably, if it wasn't Lane Riggs, it probably would have been Chandler Smith. But otherwise, great day for him. Um, a couple other guys that needed to have some good days. Those Thor Sport guys, Ty Majeski and Ben Rhodes, they both finished up there in the top 10. So that was some good news for them. Their teammate, uh, what was his name, Colt Butcher, he had some electrical gremlins early, but ended up finishing, and he ended up in the top 15 as well. So good to see him do well. But yeah, there was a lot of chaos going on throughout the truck race that made it a lot of fun to watch. And I know it was a resident only or a card only uh, attendee race, so it wasn't very highly attended. But I feel like those that got to watch the race in person definitely they they were gifted a show. It was great entertainment. And we can gripe about these guys not having a ton of respect or whatever, but at the end of the day, the product on track was great. And I don't know about you, but like I said, that was very entertaining to watch throughout the entirety of the race. Like you said, there were some lulls in the race, but uh, do you think the entertainment an on-track product matched what it should be? Do you think it exceeded what it should have been? Do you think it could have been better? I mean, I know you kinda touched on it a little bit, but
I believe it exceeded expectations in terms of TV. We're hearing from a lot of on the ground reports of hospitalities actually being very, very poor, if not non existent in places. But in terms of what we saw on track and the entertainment and all the pre race, post race coverage was amazing.
I agree. The Now, Fox Sports did have some questionable camera angles there at the end of the race. They decided to focus on Chandler Smith for about 10 seconds too long when he was facing backwards, but there were definitely some moments where they could have improved the broadcast for sure. But the CW did a much better job, I think, than Fox Sports did, just in my opinion. I think the CW has just done a better job overall than Fox has for the truck series, but that's just me. I don't know if the booth has anything to do with it. I prefer the CW booth over FS1, but again, that's just a personal opinion. But that the O'Reilly race on Saturday was it definitely had its moments. It started off pretty rough for Corey Day. Corey Day could not catch a break to start the race. Uh, there was a manhole cover that came up and embedded itself in his radiator. Now, under normal circumstances, uh, well, number one, they red flagged the race so that they could repair the track. Under normal circumstances, you cannot repair your car under the red. However, in this case, NASCAR was generous and actually allowed Corey Day not only to repair his car under red, they also gave him his 4 laps back that scored he was scored 4 laps down. They gave him his laps back because the damage was, quote, "an act of God." It was not necessarily a racing incident, or it wasn't necessarily something that could have been deemed as preventable. So they were very generous about that. What were your do you think I mean, do you think it was warranted, or do you think that he should have been scored the 4 laps down, not been able to work on his car, under red, all that stuff?
It was the absolute right call by NASCAR to give him those laps back and, not give him his laps back and let him work on the red. Correct me if I'm wrong, same thing or very similar happened to Kyle Busch during, was it the All-Star race or the Coke 600 one year where the camera fell and he had the wire wrapped around the car. I think,
It was at Charlotte, but I can't remember if it was the 600. I think it was the All-Star race.
okay. Still, they let him work under red and all that stuff, even though it was not points paying. Uh,
Yeah.
At the end of the day, NASCAR did the right thing by, hey, we're not going to score you that many laps down. You can stay on the lead lap, work on it under red. Because both instances were was outside influence, something not secured properly in both cases. So,
Yeah.
the great call by NASCAR. I'm glad that they had some sort of sense. They did something right for once.
They did. I mean, it's very tough to get on NASCAR for that because, again, they made the right call, and I think people would have been rightfully upset if they did not allow, um, Corey Day to fix his car, and like I said, they did the right thing, and they something like that, it's kinda hard where it's a manhole cover, so you would think that it would be secured. I think they said they like welded it down or something like that, but unfortunately, it came loose and flew up in the air, and unfortunately, Corey Day was on the receiving end of a very, very unfortunate piece of metal, big old chunk of metal. But he was able to rebound from that and ended up finishing 10th and scored some stage points in stage two. So I would say that's definitely not a bad day by any means for Corey Day. Not a bad day again when you consider you almost had a hole in your radiator. But one guy that did not have a great day was his Chevy teammate Justin Allgaier. He had a lot of engine gremlins throughout the race, which is very unlike a junior motorsports car. And he was only able to complete 43 out of the 60 laps that were run, and so that was definitely not something that he needed. Now, as a guy that's got a massive, massive points lead, it's not going to do a whole lot for him. But I know just based on momentum, especially when they're going to Sonoma next week, where you need all the momentum you can get, that's not what they need. So again, just kind of a difficult day for them. But it was a very, very emotional win for Austin Hill. It was his first win and RCR's first win since Kyle Busch passed away, and they did honor him in a very cool way. They all had the eight hats in victory lane. They had an eight flag. Um, Austin Hill went and found the eight that they had painted on the track and did a burnout around it. So that was really cool to see. And he dedicated it to the Bush family afterwards in his post race press conference, which was really cool. Um, and there's a picture of Austin Hill getting towed to victory lane because he had melted the tires. So they basically just hooked him up and said, "We'll tow you to victory lane. I really don't care." And the tow truck that took him to victory lane was none other than tow truck number 8. So that was a really, really cool nod. I don't know if it was on purpose or not, but that was really cool to see. And there was that really cool moment for them. And I don't know if you heard his post race press conference, but Austin Hill said it was about 6 laps to go, and he needed to find an extra something to finish the race strong and try to take the lead back. And he said something told him to adjust his brake bias, and I don't remember which way he did it. I think he said he added like 6 rounds of front brake, which he said is something you don't do at a road course. But something was telling him to do that. He said, "Kyle, if you're watching, I need some help." And he said that's when something told him to add front brake bias. Now, what does for me? I don't obviously drive. I'm curious, what does that adjusting that bias do towards the front, towards the rear? How does that help you on the road course? How does that help you with the grip?
So brake bias is whether or not the fronts are grabbing first, the rears are grabbing first, and where most of the pressure is. I do believe it might be different for different series, but I know in Formula One, when they say add brake bias, you're adding brakes to the front. You're adding more pressuring grip towards the brake grip towards the front. Upside is it'll grab quicker. Downside, you lock the fronts more. When it's taking away brake bias, you're putting it towards the rear. Now they don't grab as much, but you can kind of push on the brakes a little harder and warm them up a little bit faster. So when he says he added brake bias, he probably put it towards the front to grab a little bit more. So he probably had to be careful on the brakes a little bit. Plus, when the more fuel you have, you want it towards the front. And as fuel comes off, you kind of want to put it towards the back. So you probably needed that little adjustment of, hey, the brakes aren't grabbing like I need to, and I need to brake a little bit later. Most of the time, brake positive brake bias is what you need. Now, 6 rounds, I don't know what that means,
I don't
but
either.
if that's in a little dial, that's 6 complete turns, and that's like six. It, sometimes each click is like 0.1%. So if he did 6 rounds, that's almost 6% pressure towards the front, which is, like he says, that's massive on a road course.
Yeah. And I
So
mean,
that's all I know about it. But sometimes you can go like maybe half of a percent or just a couple clicks. And in Formula One, they do it constantly. And in other racing motorsports, I think they do it like per lap. Like I need a little bit less, a little bit more. So I don't do it often in iRacing in NASCAR. In fact, I hardly touch it at all. But like I said, 6 clicks might just be 0.6%. It might be 6% or a 6 whole percent. So, but I agree. It's unheard of. That's wild. And apparently it worked. So I wouldn't complain.
no. And he was able to get it done. He got the job done in tremendous fashion, despite the fact that there was a 23 car pileup that was absurd to watch. I mean, we saw Sam Mayer. He misjudged the turn one, and he bounced off the wall a little bit on the inside, and then that shot him left across traffic, and he went basically head on into the barriers. And those are temporary walls, and they caved in and moved. Thankfully, everybody was able to walk away okay for the most part. I think you said Anthony Alfredo had to be helped to the ambulance, but he was up and moving and did a uh, post race interview or a post infield care center interview. But it was good to see everybody walk away from that, especially after Christopher Bell's hard hit a couple weeks ago at Michigan. But um, it was it was definitely one of those pileups that we saw at Chicago, where you know everything just kind of the every car comes flying in, and there's only so much room, and you're all barreling down, and there's really not much time to react to anything. And so, in that situation, everybody's kind of wrecking in front of you. You've got no time to react. And even if you do react in time, somebody behind you may not, and they might punch you into somebody else. And so that can cause a whole other myriad of problems. And so that was a big, big wreck that happened and took out a lot of great cars, especially, like I said, Sam Mayer, who was having himself a fairly decent day to that point. Uh, both 41 teams actually for Haas have been having a good couple of weeks for sure, but unfortunately, that took him out. It took out Anthony Alfredo, who again was running very well. Sawalich, who has had a couple of rough weeks here and there. So definitely not the way that they wanted their day to end. But Taylor Gray also he had himself a fantastic day. Got himself a stage win, picked up a lot of points for the day, led most of the or he led more laps than anybody, even though nobody really dominated. It was just kind of he had a couple cars leading quite a few laps. And so unfortunately, he did not get the win. Like I said, that went to Austin Hill, but still a lot of entertainment back and forth all around the track. A lot of great passing zones. Just a ton of fun. And like I said, we have to applaud NASCAR for putting this event on an active naval base, and they were talking to the base commander on, I think it was the truck broadcast, and he did make a comment that yes, it is an active military base, and yes, they are still ready to deploy at a moment's notice if they need to. So the fact that this event was going on and taking place and it did not interfere with any of the day-to-day operations speaks volumes to how they coordinated this entire thing between NASCAR and the Navy, and it was it was tremendous. They had a lot of big names come out for the weekend, grand marshals and pace car drivers and just celebrities in attendance in general. I think was really awesome to see, and the hype around the entire weekend was really, really cool. I was just reading something that Jeff Gluck had put out about 2 hours ago. It was a couple of comments, from Ben Kennedy, Chief Operating Officer of NASCAR, and let's see. I had just found it, and of course, it decides to refresh and I lose it. So, from Ben Kennedy, again, Chief Operating Officer of NASCAR, he said the total weekend attendance, which is a number that's may or may not blow you away here, at a naval installation, mind you, 125,000 was the total weekend attendance. Thoughts on that?
Fairly decent for impromptu temporary circuit.
I would have to agree. It's a great turnout. I was expecting around maybe 100,000. 125 is great. Um, Fans came from all 50 states and 17 different countries. So again, that's really cool to see a lot of international and complete US representation. So that was really cool. 67% of those ticket buyers were first time NASCAR ticket buyers. You think those 67% are going to become regulars, or do you think that this was just, oh, well, they're in the area, so I might as well check it out?
It's probably a little bit of both. Knowing what had happened with the hospitality side, probably half of that 67, if not a little bit less, will probably come back for a second chance. So I NASCAR and whoever was supposed to be coordinating all that stuff kind of dropped the ball on that. But in terms of on track entertainment and in fact you were on a Navy installation which almost no one gets on, minus your
Yeah.
special cat card and special provisions. I do wish that those new fans give NASCAR a second chance because this was a weird one-off fluke, or at least we know for sure this is a one-off. So Sonoma's next week. If you're still in the area, go.
Yeah. I know it's a heck of a drive, but it'd be worth it. Ben Kennedy also says that they brought in extra food trucks and additional staff to work bars and concession stands overnight, which I mean that takes a lot of communication and logistical uh, planning and things like that. Um, After quote unquote some fans reported a negative experience on Saturday. I think it was more than just some. There were quite a few that I saw that reported negative experiences of hour plus long waits at the concessions. By the time they got up there, they ran out of food. Water stations were not in the right spots of where they were advertised to be. Porta johns were in short supply. This, that, and the other. But I will say I haven't seen a whole lot of negativity today as far as some things. I think the only negative things I saw were about the long waits for security reasons, which, I mean, I'm sorry, with our dad being in the military, we know that going on an active military installation, there's gonna be extra security regardless. That's just the way it is. Now, the average person probably doesn't take that into account, which is 100% understandable, but, that was gonna happen. But, yeah, I mean, they did a great job adjusting and making the right moves to make Sunday much more enjoyable for the fans. Uh, Ben Kennedy was also asked on whether the event could return, and here was his statement. Well, actually, before I read it, would you like to see NASCAR come back to Coronado or another military installation, or would you prefer them not to?
I'm 50-50 on it. The fan in me wants to, but someone that's studying business and management and all that stuff, this is an okay one-off. I don't see it returning to Coronado, but maybe, you know, as like a maybe like a promotional event or award ceremony or something like that. I can see that happening again. Now, if they were to come back and if they were to vote, I would probably either put Fort Polk or Fort Irwin, but that's just me. I'm just
Fair
real
enough.
curious on those two. I know it's not called Fort Polk anymore. I forgot what it's called, but just for absolute
Well,
giggles, I want to see them in the middle of nowhere, California.
yeah, Fort Polk they renamed and then they switched the name back, so it still is Polk, but it would be very entertaining to see them run it in the middle of nowhere. Uh, the the There was an article that did come out that did say that they had explored the possibility of running on the Golden Gate Bridge, but they couldn't find a circuit layout that would be feasible. And they also knew the logistics of shutting down the Golden Gate Bridge at minimum for probably 2 days, one for setup, and then the race. You might even be looking at three, depending on how long it would take to tear it down, tear it apart. But just logistically, it wouldn't make sense. But switching back to whether this event could return, the statement from Ben Kennedy is this quote, "What I can tell you is that we feel like this is a tremendously successful event, in my opinion, with 125,000 weekend um, total weekend attendance. I would say that was fairly successful. Uh, Obviously, we want to be respectful that this is an active military base at the same time. We would love to return. We're also cognizant of the fact that this is an active military base, and we will want to be mindful of that." End quote. So, doesn't sound like they're shutting the door on it. However, with the rumors of the Chicago Street Course coming back next year, but earlier in the year, might rule this out. But then again, they have to find a replacement. If the street course comes back, then they would have to find a replacement for Chicagoland. Could it work? Yes. Is it impossible? No, but highly unlikely, I think, in my opinion. But they did a fantastic job. The cup race was electric. The energy was through the roof, I think. Even just during the pre-race, it seemed like it was being presented as a grand event. And as Adam Alexander said, it feels like it's a crown jewel event, which I know is a little weird, especially and I know the older generation is gonna be like, well, it's not the Daytona 500, it's not the Coke 600, this, that, and the other. But did it feel like a bigger event than just a regular season race to you?
It did. And not just because, we're both military kids, military brats, but it just, the way it was presented, the way it marketed, it did feel like a really, really big event. So I think the hype is warranted on this one.
Yeah, and I think like it still had um the military appreciation that like the Coke 600 has. And I know obviously you haven't been to one yet. Hopefully you guys can come out here at some point and experience that because that's awesome. But I feel like they did a really good job honoring the military, honoring the Navy. The fact that they had the booth on the USS Carl Vinson, those shots were incredible inside that flight deck, which was awesome, or inside the tower, whatever you want to call it. I won't even get super technical about it. Please don't fight me on that. We weren't Navy kids, we were Army kids, but nevertheless, it was cool seeing the where the booth was set up and how that was all presented and how, you could there was a section of bleachers on the flight deck to for the sailors to watch the race, and they did a great job. I'll leave it at that because I'm running out of words on how to describe it. It was incredible, and the on track entertainment was just as great as the off track entertainment. It was it was fun to watch a lot of different guys lead the race. I think there was a total of 20 different lead changes, which they said tied a Cup Series record on a road course, which I believe was Riverside in 1970 and Coda in 2025. So whatever they did to the road course package definitely worked. Whatever those tires were doing, falling apart, cording, you name it, it did its job. And like I said, it created some of the best racing we've seen on a road course in a while. And we had some earlier, well, not necessarily early, but I'll call them early-ish issues for some of the usual suspects that we would have liked to have seen. It actually all started with Austin Hill, Connor Zilich, and SVG getting tangled in a mess. I think Austin Hill actually kind of overdrove the corner a little bit on a restart, and it was a battle between Hill and Zilich, and I think Austin Hill locked up his rear brakes. They both checked up. SVG had a massive run, and I think SVG just did not anticipate the speed difference. He didn't anticipate Hill checking up to get off the gas a little bit, and that kind of sent everybody into a frenzy. Now, granted, there were a good amount of cars that avoided it. I know you and I were watching at the same time, and you kept pointing out Briscoe with his wreck avoidance. You got any comments on that car control he had on that?
It was heads up by him. I think he got tapped, but I don't think it was. I think it was very minimal. But I kept saying, oh, watch him, and the camera never ever pointed him out. Or when you saw replays, still didn't see him. It's like, come on, acknowledge that. That's almost a highlight in itself of him trying to fishtail to stop, and he barely gets touched. That was a missed opportunity.
Yeah. One thing we can't forget about was if we're talking about great car control, was even earlier in the race when SVG got into the back of Christopher, or not Christopher Bell. I almost said the wrong one. Well, I did say the wrong one. Uh, he got into the back of Busher. Busher basically did a full 360, and like everybody came to a stop. Nobody, like, there was no big wreck or anything. Riley Herbst comes flying, well, not flying, but he comes around the outside and passes everybody. He takes like 3 or 4 spots on that one little turn right there, and then they keep going, and we stayed green throughout that, and I think NASCAR Race Control did a great job of letting that play out. Buescher got his car refired and going back in the right direction, and it turned out to be a great call because then we kept running from there, and it was, I will say, a lot of the calls were or non-calls were very well done. Austin Hill spinning, or not Austin Hill, Austin Dillon spinning early in the race and not the yellow not being thrown. Jimmy Johnson punting a tire pack, yellow not being thrown. Great calls because that would have ruined the flow of the race, I think, where it takes about 6 minutes, it seems like, to get one caution lap in. And so the fact that they chose not to, and they let him race it out, was a lot of fun to see. I did mention Christopher Bell because I was looking at his name here. Unfortunately, he was officially the first driver out of the race. He did before the race, it was announced he was not gonna run the full length of the race, between Joe Gibbs and Bell and everybody else in his camp, they decided it was not worth the risk to his safety and his recovery efforts to race the entirety of the race. So they had Brent Cruz step in, who's only 18, by the way. Great effort for Brent Cruz to get in the car after the first caution. And they did some adjustments with, I think they added some extenders for the pedals, but they didn't really have to do anything for the seat. They just had to change out the steering wheel. Because Hocevar, or not Hocevar, Bell has that left side of the steering wheel shaved off so he can grip it a little bit better with the cast that he's got on his wrist. But they said it only took about a minute, maybe 90 seconds to get everything switched out and switched around and to where Brent Cruz could just go. And they did it under caution, which again was planned, and they had everything uh, down to where they weren't going to lose a lap or anything like that. So good on them. Unfortunately, they had, I think, what sounded like a transaxle issue, which turned into a transmission issue, which blew the engine. So not the way that Bell wanted his day to end for sure. And I think Brent Cruz only got about 16 laps in as well. And the rumor is he is Denny Hamlin's replacement here at the end of 2027 in that 11 car. So not what you want to see when you've got a guy that's waiting in the wings that is trying to get some seat time and possibly get some things um figured out. But then again, that's just unfortunately the way the cookie crumbles. Yeah, Brent Cruz not getting the amount of seat time I know he needed or wanted. Like I said, especially since he's trying to, or he's rumored to be their replacement for Denny Hamlin in 2020 at the end of 2027. But they're going to dive into some of that this upcoming week and figure out what exactly went wrong with it. But if Bell is not 100% ready to go for Sonoma, my guess is he's probably going to do the same thing where he starts the race to get credit for the race and then um, have a relief driver, most likely Brent Cruz, step in and run the remainder of the race. So if Bell is not okay, and I know Bell is a competitor that wants to continue to run as much as possible, but if it's at the detriment of his recovery and his future and the health of his wrist, I think it's going to be safety over his will to race. So I think there is still again a possibility that um, Brent Cruz gets another shot next week, and if that's the case, then hopefully he can get some more laps in, some more reps in to where he gets a better understanding of the Cup car. And I know he does some sim work for JGR as well, so it's not completely new to him. It's not completely foreign, but at the same time, like nothing beats real world on track experience against other drivers. So, it's unfortunate the way that his day ended, but there's next week for him possibly. Again, we had a couple of the favorites and the favorite go out, like I said, early with Shane Van Gisbergen. We all, I think, had him in our fantasy lineup, and I actually had predicted him to win. I wish I didn't because man, oh man, our fantasy points tanked this week. It was terrible. But there was a guy that was on, I think, nobody's radar, and he's not even running full time this year in the Cup Series or in any series really, that got his first career Cup win, and that was Corey Heim, Mr. Heim Time himself. He has officially arrived in the Cup Series. Just I think it's been only about a week or 2 weeks since they announced he was going to be driving full time for 2311 next year. And he had an intense battle with Tyler Reddick late in the race. that was so much fun to watch. You and I were talking as it was happening, and I wasn't sure that Heim could actually catch Reddick there towards the end, but I don't know what had happened, whether Reddick had faded or whether Heim had found something else in his car. I still don't know what he did, but or how he found the speed, but I think he just kind of forced Reddick to make a mistake and capitalized on it. And then they made some contact, and I think Reddick ended up making contact with the wall. And you said it seemed like Reddick let him have the spot based on the way that we saw things play out.
In his interview, Reddick's interview, he did say, "I got into him, and you know, he didn't feel that that was right, especially being teammates. So he wasn't going to pass him for the win like that. He was going to back off, try again. Then that's where his tire just decided to go home early. So
Yeah.
Re- that was great sportsmanship, even if they weren't teammates or even manufacturer mates. So that I'll tip my hat to Reddick on that one. That was great sportsmanship that you don't see much of these days.
Yeah, and I think that's like if we race each other, typically that's what we'll do with each other is like, "Hey, I screwed up. I made too much contact. I'll let you have the spot right now." And that's something again, like you said, you don't see at any level these days, but the fact that Reddick was willing to say, "Okay, I'm willing to try again, willing to fight him fair and square for this." And then unfortunately, we just didn't end up getting that final final battle that I know we all kind of deserved to see, but nevertheless, Corey Haim just ran away with it at that point because everybody was kind of far enough back. His teammate Bubba Wallace, I think, recovered the most out of anybody this weekend. Um, Bubba had a loose wheel after the first pit stop, and they actually held him for 2 laps on pit road as a penalty. And due to the cautions and everything, he got his lap back, and Bubba ended up finishing second. And we know he's been working on his racecraft on the road courses and stuff because he's never really been that strong. But it seems like the last 2 years he's really stepped it up and definitely found another gear on road courses. He's found something. He's been able to fine tune his skills and finishing second after what seemed to be a race ending or a day ending loose wheel. I mean, you can't really argue with that. The only way it gets better is if you win, but when you're 10.8 seconds back of your own teammate for the win, there's not much you can do. But he was in a pretty intense battle with Kyle Larson throughout that final stint, and it was entertaining to watch them go back and forth. But it was still a lot of fun. It looked like Carson Hocevar may have possibly had a shot as well, but he ended up making some contact with the wall, spinning out a couple times, and that was unfortunately his day towards the end. But we talked about the other 3 2311 drivers. We might as well mention the last one that will no longer be their teammate next year in Riley Herbst. Uh, but Herbst finished 8th and actually came in second in stage 2, led 3 laps of the race. It's definitely a good look that I think is increasing his stock for when he goes over to what presumably will be Legacy next year and possibly their 3rd chartered car if they get one. And so, I mean, if he can take what he's doing at 2311 the last couple weeks and translate that over to Legacy, that will be good for them. And you know, with Legacy stepping up their game as well, uh, both of them again finishing in the top 20. I know they had faster cars than what they showed, but unfortunately, kind of getting caught back in traffic and I think some of them, I think both of them might have sustained a little bit of damage as well. So it's kind of tough to battle back from that. But they both did fantastic as well. Um, the front row guys had well. both of them had great days. Zane Smith finished 4th and Todd Gilliland finished 21st, but Gilliland ran much better than that throughout the race. So we've got to give him his flowers there, give him his props. And so that was good to see them both do as well as they did. Blaney had a fast car early in the race, won stage 1, and then finished 5th in stage 2, led a couple laps as well in there, and was doing pretty well. Actually, Blaney led the most laps out of anybody. He led 12 laps, which I think I just looked at that and that kind of surprised me a little bit. But um, he was running pretty well all race. Finished 9th. Uh, he had a couple moments where, based on tire strategy, it looked like he was going to fly by some guys, and then they kind of all. I don't want to say got a little bit more evened out by the tires, but it looked like Blaney wanted to conserve some, and so it was kinda difficult for him to make up spots. Ryan Preece picked up a stage win as well. That was his 5th career stage win, in stage 2. He almost won stage 1, trying to battle it out with Blaney, but couldn't get that done. But, a lot of unexpected drivers, I think, towards the front, which was a very refreshing instead of seeing your typical SVG run away with it. Instead, it was, uh Corey Heim there at the end, which they said that was the largest margin of victory for somebody's first win since Alan Kulwicki at Phoenix in 1988. And that lead was 18 seconds. So I would say that's in pretty good company right there. But Corey Heim, Mr. Heim time is officially has officially announced his his arrival on the cup scene. And I had joked with you and said, I don't know that we both had Corey Heim winning his first race before Zilich, especially on a road course, to beat them both. But that just proves, I think, what we've been saying, and I think what everybody has been either quietly saying or very loudly saying, get this man a full-time ride. And now that he has one, and he has one secured for next year, I think that might have given him a little bit of a confidence boost to say, okay, I'm not really racing. I'm not really like competing for a seat. I have a seat now. So let me show what I've got. And I think he just went out there and proved it. I mean, what do you make of Corey Heim's win in his 13th cup start?
A little early, but I am not surprised. 2311 does have great equipment. Heim with all the series hopping he's doing might have been a godsend this year. He can focus on one or the other, and I'm glad that he's got the ride. I am expecting great things from him. This is not a one and done situation. So I'm on board. I'm hopping on the train, and I'm doing this before the bandwagon fans.
I'm right there with you. It was like I thought Zilich had a really, really fast car. Uh, did he have the fastest car to win it today? No. Do I think he had a top 5 car before the wreck? I believe so. Um, but just unfortunately getting caught up in that wreck didn't do him any favors. And like it wasn't even his fault. Austin Hill even admitted, like, hey, I screwed that up. I locked up the rear brakes. But nevertheless, we had that issue. Uh, Ricky Stenhouse had a radiator issue, ended up retiring from the race on lap 59. Now, there was a driver that actually made his cup debut, and it was for Project 91, Kevin Magnuson. Uh, he finished 27th, which obviously is not where he wanted to finish, but he does have one distinction under his belt that I don't know that he knew he was going to get before the race was over. He had the fastest lap of the race, which to say you had the fastest lap of the race, ahead of all of these Cup regulars, Connor Zillage, Christopher Bell, Tyler Reddick, SVG, that says a lot about his skill. And so I will be very interested to see if this is not just a one off, if he can potentially secure himself another ride. There have been rumblings about maybe Sonoma. I don't think, I think Sonoma's a little soon, but, um, anything's possible, I think. But it would be really cool to see him get another shot at Sonoma next week for sure. But it was great to see him come out and do his thing. He and Gregson had a dust up after the race, and based on the in-car footage, it does look like Magnussen did punt Gregson at one point in the race and ended Gregson's day. Obviously, Noah was not too thrilled about that and went up to him after the race was over on pit road and just said, "What is wrong with you?" And Magnussen was like, "Just get out of my face." And he didn't back down from it. So, he definitely took what Gregson was trying to give him and didn't cower away from it. So he knows what he's up against. Like Magnuson knows, and so he was like, "Look, you screwed around and found out. Like, what do you want me to tell you?" And so I again, Gregson not being too happy with that, but sometimes you got to have an outsider come in and put you in your place a little bit. Maybe. I'm not saying Gregson was in the wrong. I'm not saying Magnuson was in the right. However, certain things happen the way that they do for a reason. And maybe they were both in the right, maybe they were both in the wrong. Who knows? But either way, it was a great weekend of racing. A lot of guys ended up making some points, some movement in the point standings. In the truck series, Lane Riggs still miles out front of Caden Honeycutt, Chandler Smith, and Gio Ruggiero. The cut line is still kind of close. I know right below the cut line, it's pretty close. Enfinger is at -5, or there is a screw up there. It's supposed to be Stuart Friesen up there in 13th, not Grant Enfinger, but Grant Enfinger is -5. Stuart Friesen is -10. Butterbean is -11, and Justin Haley is -22 to the cut line. So there's still a lot of potential movement for those guys to make up some ground on the cut line. Uh, Tyler Ankrum with kind of a rough day dropped down a little bit. He's now ninth. He's +23 to the cut line. So there's definitely he's definitely got to continue to be consistent to make the chase, but cut line is looking pretty close there. The O'Reilly series is also kind of close. It's not necessarily as tight as what it will be here in just a minute, or in a couple weeks. But again, Allgaier way out front despite his rough week as well. Jesse Love, Corey Day, Sheldon Creed, and Austin Hill round out the top 5. But Sawalich is +8 on the cut line after his unfortunate early end of the day. Brent Cruz is 8 below. Raja, despite running between two different teams, is -12. Ryan Sieg is -30 to the cut line. So again, there's still some time for those guys to make up some points. And again, there's going to be a lot of movement after the road course at Sonoma next week. That's going to create some chaos. So it'll be definitely fun to keep an eye on that. The Cup Series, again, we had some movement as well. The cut line in the Cup Series is much, much tighter, though. I will say from 14th all the way back to about 20th, you're looking at them within about 30 points of each other. Eric Jones catapulted his way up into 14th. He's 10 above the cut line. Cindric is +8. Priest is +5. Unfortunately, with SVG wrecking out early, this is a chance for him to build and potentially build on his buffer on the cut line. He is now 5 below the cut line. Joey is -10, Brad is -13, and Allmendinger is -21. And even McDowell at -34, he's not too far off either. So there's still a lot of season left for these guys to make up some room. With again with Sonoma coming up, you've got Atlanta here in a couple weeks, um, Chicagoland, which we haven't been to in quite a few years now. So it's going to get really interesting to see where these guys are going to fall. But it's that's what we live for. That's why we watch every single week is because anything can happen.
Before we start winding down, shit. Before we start winding down the show, what are your thoughts or opinions on the uh, the 5 races that Prime did? Do you think it was on par? Do you think it was mediocre? Was it better?
In comparison, and I know it's kind of it's because it's right after Fox, but I think Prime just in general, they nailed it again this year with bringing back Mark Martin and uh, Martin Truex Jr. and Jeff Gordon and Carl Edwards. Bringing back these guys that aren't necessarily media guys all the time, but bringing back former drivers just in general has been a lot of fun to see. They had Brad, I think, last week at Michigan, or a couple weeks ago at Michigan, and getting to see his perspective on some things was really cool as well. So they're leaning more into a side of the fan base that I think appreciates that stuff more, myself included. I definitely appreciate them going in detail with like some of the racing strategy, and like I know they've got the burn bar for fuel efficiency, which kind of uses some AI and some computer generated math and all that crazy stuff that I don't quite understand. But um, that's why they make the money that they do. But uh, I will say, like I said, Prime has definitely leaned heavy into that side of things, and I appreciate it. And they've definitely captured the positives in a lot of things. Their camera work and production seems to be a lot better. So, I mean, I do have to applaud them on that as well. Uh, do you do you think they did better? Do you think they did worse than Fox? Do you think they did better than what NBC typically does? I'm just kind of curious where you land on it too.
I have very strong opinions about the first two. The second one was better, but that very first one must have been someone new in the production truck because they did not really know what they were doing. You can see all the behind the scenes stuff where they would forget to hit a button or slide something over, and you can see like 7 or 8 different videos they could choose from, like pre-recorded stuff. And I thought I did something wrong. It's like, did I bump something on my phone? Did I bump something on the TV? And the coordination was just way, way off. The second one
Yeah.
was clunky but better, and I think they capped it off on a very good high note with the San Diego one. So I'm not going to forget that easily. That very first one was doggone awful. I would say another word, but I'm trying to keep this family friendly. It was doggone awful.
Well, I
So
think part of it too, like I don't want to make excuses for them either, but that was kind of a rough week as a whole. I know they had a whole lot of plans for what they wanted to do, and then they had to do a lot of shifting around because of the passing of Kyle Busch. Not necessarily that affects production quality or anything, but I know that they had some pieces that they wanted to run and things like that, and certain plans that they had in motion that couldn't quite follow through. But still, I mean,
yeah, I'm not discounting that, but just the coordination, and I'm not really supposed to see video lineups. I'm not really supposed to see. It's one thing if it was the live stream before, because I think that was happening as the Indy 500 was winding down.
yeah,
But like, this was during actual airtime, so that was yeah, that was not good at all. But overall, compared to last year, I would say on par, just a tiny bit under. just because of their start. But all in all, I'm going to say they did very, very well again.
Now, if you had to rate them out of 10, just general rating 1 to 10, 10 being like perfect, no flaws, 1 being like don't ever broadcast a race ever again, where would you put it?
If I were to do last year's without comparing it to this year, I would do a 9 for last year. For this year, 7. Not not quite 8 because they had 2 races where they had a little bit of flubs. So with
That's
the 2 back to back that they kind of had to smooth things out, 7 is my guesstimate.
that's fair. I would go if I were I agree with you last year on a 9. Because I was at the 600, I haven't still haven't had a chance to go back and watch it on TV yet or on Prime yet. I'll probably do that this upcoming week before traveling, but or maybe during travel, who knows. But last year, like I said, I agree, it was a 9. This year, I would give it like an 8, 8.5, only because again, there was some camera, some production work that I think could have been smoothed out. But again, this is only year 2 for them. Like you said, I don't know if they had a new director or if they had somebody new running the show, but they can only go up from here, I think. So I mean, that's positive, and it was definitely a good broadcasting experience, good viewing experience, I think, from home as well, which definitely I think is needed right after not to keep crapping on Fox here, but like they they need a change somewhere. But that's just that's a whole other topic we can dive into here in a couple weeks if we want to. But yeah.
Well, we all know the winner gets the glory at the end of the day, but not every story ends in victory lane. Some performances deserve to be hung on the fridge, others you'd rather kick to the curb. Welcome to Fridge or Trash. Let's let's start with the low lights first. Let's do the truck series. Who's your throw it away, forget about it. Let's start next week.
Okay. So we had talked about this off camera, and I think this week is there's going to have to be a couple exceptions for guys that got involved in incidents because not a lot of guys didn't have contact with anyone or anything. So we're gonna have to kind of shuffle some things around, make some room f- for some exceptions. But I do want to commend some people, but we'll get to that in a minute. But as far as the low lights, I mean, I don't really wanna kick him while he's down again, but, like, Grant Enfinger had a day that I know he wishes he could change. Like, he had a great points day as far as stages 1 and 2 go. He finished 5th in stage 1, 3rd in stage 2. He was running pretty well, and then just unfortunately got caught up in some things, finished a couple laps down, didn't finish where he needed to, where he wanted to, and like I said, a 29th place finish from where he was running all day. Not exactly the best, but I mean, like I said, he had himself a rough day. And then Caden Honeycutt, like I said, he was involved in the accident again. Again, we said we try not to pick guys that are involved, but you know, he was running really well, battling it out towards the front, and then unfortunately, late accident caused him to finish 23rd and not any better than that. So unfortunate for him. Do you have any or who was your trash driver from the truck series?
I agree with you on Enfinger, but my other one was Chandler Smith, who came in 22nd.
That's
Just
fair.
just wasn't there. Strategy couldn't really save him. I can't remember. Was he involved with any wreck or anything?
Yeah, because he was the one that they focused on at the very end there when he got spun on the last restart.
That's right. Because I know on this little segment we try not to pick people that have gotten into wrecks, but each series I think only had like 9 or 10 drivers that weren't bumped or touched or wrecked at all. So we kind of have to throw that one out the window, but with a couple caveats. So yes, he got spun. Yes, he could have finished a lot better, but at the end of the day, it was just a product of the racing this weekend.
Yeah.
Let's go over to the O'Reilly series here. Whose performance would you hang on the fridge?
You know, I'm not gonna go with a winner because again, that's kind of cheating. I do want to go with I'll say two, and the reason being they were back to back. They were right behind each other. Austin Green, who was booted for a couple races for Nick Sanchez, he came back and had an eighth place finish. Had a couple stage points in stage one. Kind of a great way to rebound after I don't want to say getting kicked out of your seat, but basically kind of getting kicked out of your seat, uh, and still coming in and running eighth in a car that you're not really supposed to run top 15 in, but he's been doing that pretty much the entire season. So we've got to give him his credit and um, doing what he's doing. Harrison Burton as well. Uh, Not that the Sam Hunt Racing Toyotas aren't top tier equipment, but like they're not typically up at the front, especially at road courses. And finishing ninth was great for him, and being able to have a performance that you can be proud of, I think is really good for him. And now that he's not necessarily the best road course racer either, but performing very well this weekend at San Diego at a track again nobody really knew. So can't really complain too much about that. I think that's a good performance for him. Whose performance in the O'Reilly series would you hang on that fridge?
I'm also going to hang up Austin Green. Not normally up there in the top 10. Normally kind of mid pack, just kind of sitting there. And like you said, was kind of booted from his seat. And to come back and say, hey, I can still perform. I can do this. Not, I don't want to say personal vendetta, but look what I can do still. Here's what you've been missing. So, very, very good performance. Now, for the sort of the big bendy elephant in the room, my trash driver, I'm going to have to say Sam Mayer. Yes, he had a very awful, scary wreck, which I'm very glad that he was okay and everyone else involved. But I admit that was just kind of a rookie mistake, just misjudging that corner and basically turning yourself into no pun intended, but a cruise missile down into that wall, collecting 15, 16 drivers. That's just a weekend you just want to curl up in a tiny little ball and go, I don't exist. No one sees me. No one's going to talk to me. I don't want to see anybody until next week.
Or in the idea of NASCAR chasm, which I think would be a great idea, get all the wrecked race cars and just catapult them off the aircraft carrier. Do that and forget about your weekend. That'd be the best part of your weekend, honestly. Have a ton of
Yeah,
fun doing it.
yeah, you could do that.
But
Who's
yeah,
your
he
trash driver of the week?
the O'Reilly series, it's kind of tough because again, you have some guys that I would not I don't want to kick while they're down. But one guy that he's bouncing back and forth between organizations, still in the same Chevy camp, but uh, Raja had a tough day. He went around for a spin, had some issues throughout the race. He's still honing his road coursing craft for sure. He's not as he doesn't have as much finesse as I know he can have. But again, it's one of those things where you just have to get those repetitions. You have to get those laps under your belt, and at a difficult track, like from what I've seen and heard from everybody that's driven the course, and all the drivers doing their interviews and stuff, it's been one of the toughest tracks that they've driven. And so, it definitely shows how tough it was to get this track tamed, and a lot of guys couldn't. So, unfortunately, I do have to put Raja in my trash performances. But just kind of a rough week for him. Same with Brennan Poole. Again, he was also kind of involved in a couple things and just back in traffic and couldn't capitalize on any fresh air, because when you're back there, you're mired back in traffic, and you don't have the cleanest of air to work with, and so you're still kind of struggling to get some handling in your car, and you don't know what your car really handles like because you're back in traffic. So kind of a rough day for him as well. But um, that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles, unfortunately. We do have to hop back, and I'm curious. We went trash drivers in the truck series, but we never went uh, fridge drivers in the truck series.
Oh yeah,
Who do
that's
you
right.
who do you want to praise in the truck series that had a better than expected weekend?
I'm gonna go sort of in order of their finish. I'm
Fair
gonna
enough.
say I got three of them because I couldn't just pick one or two. Hemrick,
Good
Mini
choice.
Tyrell,
Also good.
and even though he had a very disappointing penalty he had to serve, Rife. All three of them don't normally see up there. They were mingling around the top five, top 10. Very, very good performances, especially Rife. I was really pulling for him. He was beating and banging, and I thought he's going to win. He's finally going to win, and just looked in the mirror too much, cooked his brakes, missed the chicane completely. That is awful, but I would take the entire rest of the day and look at it and go, I did great.
For sure. And with that being, he's not a full-time guy, and, earning stage points in both stages, and being able to lead some laps was really cool. And or lead a lap, I guess, only one official lap led, but it seemed like he led more than that. He's one of my fridge drivers as well, Tyler Reif. He's one I think needs more seat time. I think I hate to say it, but I think if he had a little bit more experience, maybe he wouldn't have mirror driven so much. But honestly, who really knows? But it was great to see him finish 19th regardless. Um, he had a fast truck there at the end, and arguably had a top 5 truck, so, the 19th place doesn't reflect it. The other one I'm gonna point out is a guy that made his return to the truck series after, I believe it was 13 years, but also made his return to the national series after 6 years, Brendan Gaughan. Now, he finished 16th, didn't necessarily run well all day, but kind of just weathered the storm and found his way, into the top 20, into the top 15, and then back to 16th, and ended up having a great finish. It's kind of hard to judge it, because like his last truck start before this was Homestead back in 2013, and he finished fourth, which I mean, okay, that's kind of hard to beat, but like his last national series start was in the Cup Series back in 2020, and he finished 35th at Talladega for Beard Motorsports. So, um, with him and him finishing 16th, and it did sound like he was officially retiring after this week, after this race. So if that's his final race in the national series, I will say a top 20 is very respectable. A lot of guys can't even get a top 20 in their entire career. So the fact that he did that, running the way he is, and the fact that he's about to turn, what is that, 51 here, July 10th. That's that's incredible. So I got to give him his flowers. Um, and he's definitely deserving of that fridge title. For the Cup Series now, since we're floating around a little bit here, who was your trash performance of the week?
I'm gonna have to go with three of them again. I know I need to rein that in a little bit, but Gregson was having a decent day until he, what did Magnuson say pretty much? He fooled around and found out.
He faffoed. Yep.
Yeah. And I'm going to say he didn't technically start the race, but Brent Cruz, Bell's replacement, just wanted to get some seat time, was finally going to get it, and then just that transactional problem and blew up the engine, which you hardly ever see in the Cup Series. That's just when you only get like what 5 laps in, and then you have to watch from the stands from the rest of the day. That's that's awful.
Oh yeah.
And my third one, I'm gonna have to say Stenhouse. He had the what was it, electrical problems right at the beginning or towards the beginning of the race, and then just hit the wall and just I don't know what happened because the wall hit didn't seem all that much, but it started spewing, fluids and liquids and stuff, and I'm like, that's just a bad way to end your day. So, like I said, I don't know how that would cause that, but that's on to next week, I guess.
Yeah, it sounded like he had some issues with the radiator, which is why it dumped all the fluids out onto the track. Um, you're right. I mean, he needed to call for or he called for a new battery, and because he at one point he had no power whatsoever. They got that fixed, and then something destroyed his radiator and couldn't do much about it. So that's kind of a tough way for him to go, especially with a somewhat local sponsor in a San Diego casino. I think it was Saquon. I think that's how you say it. So not the day that I know that they wanted for their driver. I would say my trash driver, unfortunately, I don't want to kick him while it was just announced he's not returning to the Wood Brothers, but Josh Berry didn't have the best day. He got pushed around quite a bit, and when you don't have the car to hold your ground, it's kind of hard to, um, you know, push back and stuff like that. So it was very very tough to see that. He just has not had the best luck, I would say, in the last year and a half. After he got his first Cup win, it seems like everything's kind of gone downhill from there. But um, he just didn't have any sort of speed, didn't have any sort of the right adjustments that were made either. So I don't know what was going on there. But I think he's probably the only driver that I would put as a. Well, no, I'll put Hocevar down there in the trash as well. He was running pretty decent all day. He was leading a couple of laps as well, and just couldn't keep his car underneath him, and got spun out a couple times and lost grip, and unfortunately couldn't recover from that. But on the flip side of the coin here, which performance would you hang on the fridge?
I'm going to give a half a performance to Briscoe just for his save. That seems like no one else knows about except for him, his mama, crew chief, and me.
And maybe his spotter, if his spotter was able to see it at the time.
But yes, I also have three. Don't worry, I think three or four is warranted for road courses. But Wallace, who did an amazing job coming from 2 laps down, lost tire, some damage, and he kept kicking himself like, oh, I'm disappointed it was second, but I should be grateful. And it's like, you came in second, dude, and you suck at road courses. I'm sorry, and that's a great performance. Pat yourself on the back. Go get a
Oh
drink
yeah,
responsibly. Come on.
go to the iBar and forget about it.
Yeah. Number two is going to be Herbst. Normally, we kind of joke about him. It's like, oh, he's like 20th to 30th. He's just kind of there, just taking up time, taking up oxygen. But he came out decent today. Strategy played well. The long game played well. And I don't know where he's going officially, but
Unofficially, unofficially, officially, unofficially, legacy. But that's just what I've been hearing. So
yeah, hopefully he does get a good ride because this was a good test of this is how adverse this is. Everyone's kind of in the same boat. Can you rise to the top? And I think eighth place is very, very decently. In
yeah,
my third, and he was up there, he led quite a bit. Priest. RFK has been kind of hit and miss, and I think Priest is starting to rise to the top these past couple of years. Granted, he can do a lot better, and correct me if I'm wrong, he won the Clash, wasn't it?
yep. He won the Clash at Bowman Gray this past year after it was delayed about 50 times due to weather. Thank you, Mother Nature, for that.
Yeah. So he can perform when it's 25 degrees outside, and he can perform when it's 80 degrees outside. So I think he'll do just fine. I don't know about the RFK charter situation, but hopefully they keep him. And if Brad decides to step away, which I don't think it's going to be anytime soon, I can see him taking over the six.
Yeah, I think Priest definitely had himself a good run today, especially getting himself a stage win. That was massive for his point situation. Like I said, he's jumped up in the points quite a bit, and now he's like 5 above the cut line. So definitely that stage win, and then the additional 9 points in stage one helped him. He actually earned the most stage points out of anybody this week, so that helps him out. Uh, he's been consistent. He's been pretty solid, and I think, like you said, if he's still running well enough, I think whether or not he ends up staying in the RFK camp, I think he's still got a ride next year, regardless of who he goes with, just because he's got the talent. I think he's got the speed, and so it'll be interesting to see who decides to pick him up, or if RFK can find a charter out of thin air, because it seems like there's not one available right now. But they still plan on running all three drivers, so we'll see how that plays itself out. But I would have to say I've got a couple of fridge drivers as well. Uh, Zane Smith being one of them, finished fourth for front row, doing a fantastic job running all throughout the day. And I was actually, for some reason, I didn't pull this up, and I should have. I was trying to and didn't get it to load in time. I was gonna look at his average running position all day because he was consistently there. His average running position was 7.9 throughout the day. Did a Like I said, a great job just sticking with it. Uh, He qualified really well. He qualified in fourth. So in theory, he netted out 0 positions. But when you start that high, it's a great way to end your weekend. And especially, like I said, when you're not known as a road course guy, and typically the only time you see him up front is at super speedways because that's where front row has the speed. But they ended up putting together a great race. Again, I think strategy also played into it, and they were able um, to run up towards the front and lead a couple laps as well. So great day for him and great momentum moving forward to next week at Sonoma. So it'll be very fun to see if that momentum from front row can carry over. But speaking of Sonoma, we talked about it quite a bit, and we've only got 2 series out there next week. We have the O'Reilly series and the Cup series out there. Truck's got a couple weeks off, but like I said, O'Reilly series is out there Saturday at 5:30 Eastern, and the Cup series is out there on Sunday at 3:30 Eastern, and they begin the in-season tournament. We'll go over that bracket next week, and probably the following week because we'll be on vacation. But we'll go over that here and give our picks on it. But besides the in-season tournament picks, do you have a race-winning pick that you want to throw out a little bit early? For the win in wine country, or is it going to be just anybody, anybody but who you think?
As much as I want to say Shane, I'm going to go with vibes. I know that's dangerous and almost always wrong.
That
I'm going to go with Daniel Suarez.
would be really fun. Uh, I think that's where he got his first career win was at Sonoma, wasn't it?
Yes.
Be a fun way to return back with a different team. I mean, it's Sonoma is such a technical track. I don't know. It's going to be difficult because I wanted to go with Suarez as well, but I'm going to pick. Can I pick two?
Go for it.
It's kind of hard. I know I had picked Chase Elliott this week for my 36 for 36 pick. I think he's got some momentum going. Uh, he finished 12th, which was not great this week at San Diego for him in comparison to what he has finished on road courses in the past. But I'm thinking either him or Larson. Now, again, Larson with his road course abilities, he's just got to be able to close it out. And what better way to end his longest winless streak of his career, especially at Hendrick in his Hendrick career, than at home. Uh, I'll call it close to home in Sonoma. So that'll be my pick. But again, definitely stay tuned. I won't be updating this week as we'll be with family and we'll be traveling. But definitely stay tuned for our episode. Probably going to be a little bit later next week, just again due to traveling reasons. But we appreciate you guys for listening and tuning in. If you liked anything you heard, saw, whatever, I have my website linked down below as well. Got a bunch of stuff there. I'll have a race recap over there as well as a race preview from or for Sonoma, and you can definitely check that out as well. But again, we appreciate it. The like, the share, comment, follow, all the good stuff. That'd be much appreciated. But we will see you next week after Sonoma. And like I said, it might be a little late, but everybody be safe and have a great week.